Asterisk, have you ever felt like you're supposed to have it all figured out by now? That you should already know the answers, the plan, the next step, but deep down, you don't? Maybe you wake up each morning with a heavy chest, wondering, am I falling behind? Why does everyone else seem to know what they're doing, while I'm still lost? The truth is, you're not alone. And here's something powerful, you don't need to know everything today. All you need is just one small step. One choice, one action, one beginning. And that might be the start of everything you've been waiting for. Asterisk. There are moments in life when you feel like you are drowning in expectations. Not only the expectations from your boss, your colleagues, your family, or society, but also the ones you secretly place on yourself. You wake up in the morning, and before your feet even touch the ground, your mind is already racing. I need to figure everything out. I need to know the plan. I need to have it all under control. And yet, deep inside, there is this heavy truth you carry every day: you don't have it figured out. Not even close. You might be in your 30s, or your 40s, or even approaching 50, and sometimes you look at your life and wonder, why haven't I gotten it together by now? Why do I still feel lost, as if I'm wandering without a map, while everyone else seems to know exactly where they're going? That voice inside tells you, you're behind. You're failing. You should have it all by now: the career, the family, the house, the peace of mind. And when you don't, the shame cuts deep. Maybe you sit at your desk at work, staring at the screen, but inside you feel nothing but emptiness. You complete tasks, you answer emails, you pretend you're fine, but a quiet question keeps echoing in your heart: what am I even doing all this for? You scroll through social media, and you see people who seem to have it all: success, confidence, balance, and you can't help but compare. Each time, the gap between who you are and who you thought you should be feels wider, heavier, impossible to close. And then, the exhaustion comes. Not just physical tiredness, but that deeper exhaustion, the kind that drains your spirit. The kind that makes you want to give up before you even begin. You tell yourself, what's the point? If I can't do everything perfectly, if I don't know the whole path, why even bother taking the first step? And so you wait. You wait for the perfect timing, the perfect plan, the perfect clarity. But as you wait, days turn into months, months into years. And you realize you've been standing still, waiting for a day that never comes. I want you to know this: you are not alone. Millions of people, people who look strong on the outside, people who smile in meetings, people who post happy pictures online, are carrying the same secret weight you're carrying. The weight of uncertainty. The fear of not knowing. The shame of not being enough. And while the world praises perfection, celebrates big achievements, and demands clear direction, nobody talks about how it feels to be stuck in this silence, paralyzed by the pressure to have it all figured out. If these words sound like they are describing your life right now, it's because I want you to hear this message clearly: you do not need to know everything to move forward. You don't need to have the 10-year plan, or the flawless strategy, or the picture-perfect confidence. What you need is just one small step. And maybe that step feels insignificant. Maybe it looks like nothing to the outside world. But inside, it is everything. Because one small step is proof that you are not finished yet. That life is not over yet. That you still have something to fight for. So, let's take this time together. This next half hour is not about giving you a lecture or overwhelming you with theories. It's about holding up a mirror to your soul, reminding you that even in your exhaustion, your confusion, your fear, you are still alive, and because you are alive, there is still hope. And before we go deeper, let me ask you something, not as a speaker to an audience, but as one human being to another. What is one thing, just one small thing, you can do in the next 5 minutes, instead of waiting for the perfect day that never comes? Why do we get stuck? Why is it that so many of us, despite our intelligence, despite our experiences, despite all the advice we've heard, still find ourselves standing in the same place, paralyzed, tired, and unsure? The truth is, most of us grew up believing a story that was never ours to begin with. We were told, by this age, you should have a stable job. By this age, you should be married. By this age, you should own a home. By this age, you should have it all figured out. And without realizing it, we internalized those milestones as measures of our worth. If we achieved them, we were successful. If we didn't, we were failing. But life doesn't unfold in perfect lines. It's messy. It's unpredictable. And yet, here we are, trying to fit ourselves into a checklist that was never designed for our unique journey. We carry invisible timelines on our backs, and every time we miss one, the weight grows heavier. The pressure builds. And instead of moving forward, we freeze. Another reason we get stuck is because of comparison. We live in a world where everyone's life is on display. Open your phone, and within seconds, you are bombarded with images of people smiling, traveling, achieving. You don't see their breakdowns at 2 a.m., their quiet fears, their debt, their anxiety. You only see the highlight reel, and your brain tricks you into believing that's the whole story. And so, you measure your messy behind the scenes against their polished public image. No wonder you feel inadequate. No wonder you feel like you're not enough. And then, there's the exhaustion. Not the kind that sleep can fix, but the deeper exhaustion of constantly pretending you're okay. Pretending to be strong at work. Pretending to be in control in front of your family. Pretending to smile when inside, you're barely holding it together. That act takes energy. And eventually, you run out. When you run out, you don't just feel tired, you feel empty. And emptiness is dangerous, because it convinces you that nothing matters anymore. Perhaps one of the biggest reasons we stay stuck is fear. Fear of making the wrong choice. Fear of wasting time. Fear of failing and having to face the embarrassment. Fear of judgment. And so we convince ourselves, I'll wait until I know more. I'll wait until I'm ready. But here's the trap, you never feel fully ready. And while you wait, life keeps moving. Opportunities pass. Years slip away. You tell yourself you're being cautious, but deep down, you know it's fear wearing a mask. Think about it. How many times have you said, I'll start when I have more energy? I'll start when I have more money. I'll start when I feel more confident. And yet, the more you wait, the further away those conditions seem. You wait for motivation, but motivation doesn't come. You wait for clarity, but clarity doesn't arrive. And so, you stay in the same place. Stuck. Trapped. And maybe, most painfully of all, we live in a culture that celebrates big leaps, but ignores small steps. When someone makes a huge career change, or launches a business, or runs a marathon, people cheer. But when someone simply gets out of bed on a hard day, nobody notices. When someone chooses to try again after failure, nobody claps. We've been conditioned to believe that only dramatic transformation counts, and so we underestimate the quiet courage it takes to start small. So here you are, carrying all of this, the weight of timelines, the poison of comparison, the exhaustion of pretending, the paralysis of fear, the undervaluing of small beginnings. Is it any wonder you feel stuck? Is it any wonder you wake up some mornings and think, what's the point? But let's call it for what it really is. The problem isn't that you're weak. The problem isn't that you're lazy. The problem isn't even that you're lost. The problem is that you've been taught to believe you must know everything, plan everything, and achieve everything perfectly before you begin. And that lie has stolen years of your life. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to see the whole staircase to take the first step. But until you recognize the lies you've been carrying, the false timelines, the toxic comparisons, the paralyzing fears, you will continue to wait for a perfect day that will never come. So, let's be honest. You're not stuck because you're incapable. You're stuck because you've been convinced that not knowing is failure. But not knowing is not failure. Not knowing is the starting place of every human journey. So here's the question: if waiting doesn't work, if pressure and fear only keep you frozen, then how do you move forward? How do you take a step when the road ahead feels like a fog and you don't even know where it leads? The answer is simpler than most of us want to believe. You don't need to fix everything at once. You don't need to see the entire map. You don't need to wait for the perfect day. You only need to begin with one step, just one, and then allow that step to lead you to the next. This sounds almost too simple, doesn't it? We've been conditioned to believe that change has to be massive, dramatic, worthy of headlines. But in reality, real change, the kind that lasts, rarely begins with a giant leap. It begins with something so small it almost feels insignificant. But that small action carries a message: I'm not stuck. I'm moving. Think about how we learn to walk. No child ever stood up one day and ran across the room perfectly. They stumbled. They fell. They took one shaky step, then another. And with time, those tiny steps became walking, and walking became running. Life hasn't changed. The rules are the same. Growth happens step by step. But here's what stops us: we want certainty. We want to know, if I take this step, will it guarantee success? Will it guarantee happiness? And when the answer isn't clear, we hesitate. But certainty is a myth. Nobody knows for sure where a single step will lead. The only guarantee is this: if you don't take it, you will stay in the same place. So what does a small step look like? It can be incredibly simple. Writing down one honest thought in your journal instead of bottling it all up. Choosing to go for a 10-minute walk instead of scrolling endlessly on your phone. Reaching out to one friend you've lost touch with. Applying for one job, even if you're not sure you'll get it. Spending 5 minutes reading something that inspires you instead of drowning in the news. None of these will fix your life overnight. But each one proves to you that you are not powerless. Each one builds momentum. And momentum, no matter how small, creates hope. Here's another truth: clarity doesn't come before action. Clarity comes because of action. So many of us sit and wait for the fog to clear before we move. But the fog only clears as you start walking. Each step illuminates a little more of the path. And the only way to see the whole road is to keep walking. Let me be even more practical. If your life feels overwhelming right now, shrink your world. Don't think about the next year. Don't even think about the next month. Think about the next hour. What is one thing you can do in the next 60 minutes that brings you even 1 inch closer to the life you want? And here's the paradox: when you commit to doing something small, consistently, the big changes begin to happen on their own. Because the truth is, your brain doesn't trust promises, it trusts proof. When you prove to yourself, day after day, that you can take one step, your brain begins to believe in you again. And that belief fuels bigger steps. Let me give you an image to hold on to. Imagine standing in a dark room. You can't see anything. You're paralyzed, afraid to move. Then, you light a single candle. The room doesn't become bright all at once, but suddenly, you can see just enough to take one step forward. That's what a small action does. It doesn't solve everything, but it gives you enough light to begin. And maybe you're thinking, but my problems are too big for small steps. I understand. It feels like your debt, your loneliness, your stress, your past mistakes are mountains too tall to climb. But every mountain, no matter how high, is climbed one step at a time. Nobody leaps to the top. And if you can focus only on the next foothold, the climb becomes possible. You don't need to figure everything out today. You don't need to fix every broken piece of your life this week. You just need to ask yourself one question, over and over: what is the next small step I can take? That step may not look impressive to anyone else. It may not even look impressive to you. But it matters. Because that step is movement. And movement is life. So don't wait for the perfect day. Don't wait until you have no fear left. Don't wait until you know every answer. Start where you are. Use what you have. Do what you can. And watch how those small beginnings grow into something larger than you ever imagined. There was once a man named Daniel. He was in his early 40s, living in a small apartment in a busy city. On the outside, his life seemed ordinary. He had a job, paid his bills, and got through each day. But inside, he was drowning. Every morning, he woke up with the same thought: what's the point? The weight of unfinished dreams pressed down on him. He wanted to write, he wanted to travel, he wanted to live a life of meaning, but the fear of failure and the belief that it was already too late chained him to his chair. Daniel spent years convincing himself he needed the perfect plan. He read books, watched videos, scribbled notes, and filled journals with ideas he never acted on. He thought, once I have everything figured out, then I'll start. But the truth was, the more he waited for that perfect clarity, the further away his dreams drifted. And with each year that passed, his energy sank lower, his spirit dimmed, and the voice inside him whispered louder, "You missed your chance." One rainy evening, sitting alone by his window, Daniel remembered something his late father used to say: "You don't climb a mountain in one leap, you take one step, then another." The words echoed in his heart, and for the first time in years, he felt a flicker of possibility. That night, instead of planning an entire book, he decided to write just one page. One page. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't polished. But it was something. And when he finished, he realized the world hadn't ended, he had actually taken the first real step. The next night, he wrote another page. Then another. Slowly, the fog began to lift. He wasn't writing to publish a bestseller anymore, he was writing to reconnect with himself, to prove that he could move forward. Weeks turned into months, and Daniel had a full manuscript. Was it flawless? No. But it was real, and it was his. What started with one small step led to a chain reaction. Encouraged by his progress, Daniel began to take other small steps, walking 10 minutes each morning, cooking one healthy meal a day, calling an old friend just to reconnect. Each little action gave him a spark, a reminder that he wasn't stuck, he was moving, even if slowly. Years later, Daniel finally published his book. But that wasn't the victory. The true victory was that he had rediscovered his own strength, step by step, page by page. And when people asked him how he managed to change his life, he would smile and say, "I stopped waiting to know everything. I just started with what I had, where I was." Life often tricks us into thinking that unless we have the full map, we can't take the first step. But the truth is, no one has the full map. Every person you admire, every success story you've ever heard, began not with certainty, but with a small, shaky step into the unknown. And here's the beautiful paradox: you don't need to see the entire staircase to climb it. You just need to see the next step. That's it. The rest will reveal itself as you move. Maybe tonight you go to bed still feeling tired, still uncertain, still questioning if anything will ever change. But if tomorrow morning you choose to do one thing, just one thing, you will have already rewritten your story. That thing could be as small as writing one page in your journal, sending that email you've been postponing, stepping outside for a walk, or cooking a meal with care instead of rushing. These are not small acts. They are seeds. And seeds, when watered daily, become trees. The pressure to know it all, to control it all, is what paralyzes us. But freedom begins the moment you release that burden and give yourself permission to simply start. One small action is infinitely more powerful than 1,000 unfulfilled intentions. So ask yourself again, right now. What can I do in the next 5 minutes, instead of waiting for the perfect day? Let that question guide you. Let it be your anchor when the storm of doubt rises. Because life doesn't change in one giant leap, it changes in a series of tiny steps, consistently taken. If you are listening to this, know this truth: you are not behind. You are not broken. You are simply standing at the doorway of possibility. And that doorway opens the moment you move, even slightly. Remember this, you don't need to know everything. You just need to begin. And one day, when you look back, you'll realize that the hardest part wasn't the climb, it was deciding to take that very first step. Take it now.